Learning the Law on X says, after 2 years, Digital Foundry attacked Stellar Blade, calling it not flattering for modern audience, unlike Forspoken. Well, Stellar Blade became Sony's most successful PC title ever, and Forspoken flopped so hard that the studio shut down and the staff was merged into Square Enix. Haha. And there's a clip that we need to revisit in light of these numbers, which we'll get to in just a minute, but I'll show them here, which we talked about previously. These numbers are nuts for how well this game has sold. With the power of hindsight, we can look back at what Digital Foundry said about Stellar Blade when it first launched and just how bad this take was.
I do think the character model was actually like very distracting in not a good way, because like with the camera angles chosen, it just felt like this game seems like a game that came out in like 2002 in terms of its, like character design. It's like a bit old and not flattering, I don't think, for a modern audience. In comparison to something like Forspoken, do you think
how does anybody watch this channel ever with a take like that? This needs to be the kind of take that ends your channel's career. It's so bad. It's so bad. Holy shit. He had all the buzzwords with it. He called out how Forspoken did it better. He's asking for games for the modern audience. I'm like, bro, whose payroll are you on and why are you gay? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but holy shit, it's so obvious. As Dorian says, it reminds me of when that Alex dude from Digital Foundry pitched a fit about Stellar Blade. Fact is, Alex is gay, so of course he objects to it. Point is, if you're gay, you're not the arbiter of what appeals to straights, and vice versa. Stay in your fucking lane. Exactly. This is just very strange. Digital Foundry, or specifically Alex, being offended by a woman being too sexy for a modern era in a Korean game is hilarious, were it not so sad. A sign of the Western gaming industry's thinking. Slight cringe warning. Slight cringe? This is what the in the Sailor Moon is this, bro? Holy crap. That is definitely something. Jay Viper, he said modern audience, which is the immediate red flag that his opinion should be completely discarded. And this was Genki talking about the sales of the game since that take happened. Shift Up released a chart showing that Stellar Blade is the best-selling PlayStation exclusive single-player PC launch in history. Reached 192,000 peak concurrent players on Steam at launch, over 2.5 times more than the previous record. There you go. Previous record, another banger, Ghost of Tsushima, one of the greatest games I've ever played. And we got Stellar Blade, which is an amazing game in its own right. There you go. All the way up there at 192,000. Holy crap. That is insane. And I wanted to highlight this video from Real Mark Fox, who says, Digital Soylentry, the venue strophobic soy boys of Digital Foundry. Let's hear what Mark Fox has to say about this.
Controversy began with comments by Alex Battaglia, or Battaglia, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, in which he criticizes the game. Let's have a look.
The one thing, I know you were talking about the character from a bygone era. I do think the character model was actually like very distracting in not a good way, because like with the camera angles chosen, it just felt like this game seems like a game that came out in like 2002 in terms of its, like character design. It's like,
well, those are two different things, by the way. He's talking about how the camera angles, he doesn't like them. And then he says it feels like it came out in 2002. I think he meant to say 02. With the character design. And I'm like, well, which one is it? You don't like the character design, or you don't like the camera angles on the character? Which one is it? Those are two different things.
A bit old and not flattering, I don't think, for a
not flattering. One of the most beautiful girls in gaming history. Not flattering.
Audience.
So Alex made a comment about the character model of Eve being from a bygone era. He talks about it being distracting and not in a good way, alluding to it being too spicy. But yet Alex has photos like these all over the internet, even posted
What
to his
the
own Instagram account.
Bro, what the fuck are we doing here? Holy shit.
Not only are these photos extremely spicy, but they're even somewhat questionable. There's one of him in what appears to be a schoolgirl skirt, and a very short one at that. He refers to Eve in Project Eve, now known as Stellar Blade, as not flattering. And if we want to talk about what's not flattering, let's take another look at his photos. Well, let's not. We all know those are not flattering. But what does he think is flattering?
It's in comparison to something like Forspoken, which has, yes, it has a much more realistic looking character designs. It's not these hyper proportioned something or another's, but it also seemed, I don't know, a bit more grounded in a way that I found much more appealing.
The model of Stellar Blade was based on the proportions of an actual real life woman. What's he talking about?
Than what we saw here.
That's right, Forspoken. He's a particularly big fan of Frey, the main character of Forspoken,
Nice.
describing the game as good looking. Yes,
Nice.
That's right, people. Forspoken, a game that was blasted for how bad it was, including the main character, is what Alex would consider a good looking game and one with good character design. Today's drink of choice is cold peppermint tea. Brewed it myself, and now I'm going to take a drink. Not bad.
I like a tea break.
So rather than disagree with Alex, Digital Foundry's John Linneman agrees with him, stating that the character model seems out of place.
What?
Character models from a bygone era put into a
It is
modern
weird.
game.
It feels a little out of place, I think.
Well, the game feels a bit out of place.
Host and lead.
It's fine, by the way. If you want to bill your outlet as the gay outlet that just talks about gay shit, fine. At least people know going into it that that's what your perspective is going to be. But don't come in here pretending that you are speaking for the everyman gamer and this is how people will feel when they play. No, like you need to tell people you are gay as fuck and you find her unattractive because you're so gay. People will understand, okay, your opinion's discarded immediately. They don't want to do that. They just want everyone just to listen to them because they want the games made and their image and what they want. They want the modern audience games.
Editor Richard Ledbetter, as well as the other character from Digital Foundry, Audi Sarley, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, simply laughed along with them, neither offering any counterpoints. There was no alternative viewpoint here. We were all
Wow.
simply left with the impression that Eve's design was from a bygone era, and it was out of place as well as distracting and not in a good way. Digital Foundry is connected to
How do I know they're gay?
Eurogamer, which came to some negative publicity lately for an article they wrote, a puff piece supporting Sweet Baby Stink. And if you didn't know already, which I have a video
Interesting.
about it, Sweet Baby Stink is a far-left radical propagandist group that corrupts games with supposed diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So if you guys are wondering who we are battling and fighting against, it's people like this that are trying to change the narrative of games and the games that get created. And they're the ones in positions of power where they influence the scores of games from professional quote unquote review outlets. That goes back to the entire issue of the power balance, or you say power imbalance, when it comes to talking about the games and what gets made. That's why they hate the YouTubers for daring to have an opinion that speaks for the masses, because they don't want to be challenged. They just want their own opinion to be out there. So the developers, even if they're base developers, are like, fuck, I need to start making my games aligned with gay people because that's the only people that play games, apparently.
We all know is simply anti-white, anti-male, and anti-hetero. The author of this radical left-wing propagandist piece is Liv Ngan, N-G-A-N, not sure how to pronounce
Every
that.
single one of these people across the board has some sort of mental illness or something wrong with them, like screws loose. They're broken people. I don't know what happened when they were younger or if they had a bad upbringing or something. There's something wrong with all of them across the board every single time. And then they project that onto you and they get mad at you for daring to stand up against them and say, yeah, your opinion's shit. And here's why.
My apologies. And to no one's surprise, Lives is a PIB. What is a PIB? It's a pronouns in bio. And not surprisingly, Digital Foundry is completely silent on the recent Sweet Baby Inc. controversy. You should take note of who in the gaming space is not talking about it, because this is the biggest news in the gaming internet space.
RTU is strangely silent.
It is odd for anyone who talks about gaming news to not even mention Sweet Baby Inc. and all the controversy surrounding it.
And Mark Fox was ahead of the curve on this video. Shout out to him for this. I do want to go on to a couple other things before we end this. We got Learning the Lost said Digital Foundry said Stellar Blade isn't flattering for modern audience, unlike Forspoken. What a marvelous happy ending. 183,830 concurrent players all-time peak. Beardad says, this guy is as gay as they get. I expect nothing else than what he said from his no. There's a reason why he permanently ran away to Blue Sky. Wow. Blue Cry, I should say. And we got Mugen Lord, who says, yeah, that Digital Foundry statement from those guys did not age well. Here is a throwback from my response to them. I am so glad to be done making these kinds of videos. Let's hear what Mugen Lord says. This guy's awesome too.
Their social political point of view, I don't give a fuck about what they have to say. You got to hear the response they had to say when they weighed in on Stellar Blade itself and the female protagonist.
I do think the character model was actually like very distracting in not a good way, because like with the camera angles.
This dude needs to be laughed out of the industry after this, like completely. There is no recovering from this. I'm sorry, bro. Like you proactively attempted to deceive gamers knowingly. That cannot fly ever.
Chosen. It just felt like this game seems like a game that came out in like 002 in terms of its, like character design. It's like a bit old.
So attractive? Is that what he's trying to get at? 002. Look at what we used to have. Look what they took from us.
Design. It's like a bit old and not flattering, I don't think, for a modern audience in comparison to something like.
These are the people that were influencing game design, by the way. These people for probably a decade or more.
Spoken, which has, yes, it has a much more realistic.
What? Side by side.
Looking character designs. It's not these hyper proportioned.
So mocap, actual person, hyper.
And it's not these hyper proportion.
Proportion. Hyper. This is an actual woman. And when they didn't know, they got called out on this. They moved the goalposts. They're like, oh, girls don't look like this. These are hyper proportions. People are like, oh, it's a Korean model. Oh, well, it's still just not the way that the camera angles are bad. It's like, bro, you lost, bro. You lost.
And it's not these hyper proportions.
She is smoking hot, just for the record.
Something or another's, but it all
Smash, aren't you married? Yes. I'm not dead. All right. Holy shit, guys.
Also seemed, I don't know, a bit more grounded in a way that I found much more appealing than what we saw here.
This is what I'm talking about.
Wow.
These dudes have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to this. And these are the type of males that people see as the figureheads or the people that people will go to get their information from. These soy drinking beta males and their opinions doesn't matter, but this is the current state that we're in. These are the type of males that's running our gaming industry and that's running our entertainment, which you need to check out my video, the collapse of the male image and what's been going on when it comes to males in modern society in general. You need to go check that out. But these guys are a perfect example of that. Like, no one cares about your opinion, and I lost a lot of respect for them even saying that. And now that we have the reveal of the actual motion capture model of the main,
which, to be honest, I did not know that this was like a motion cap model until after these quote unquote journos started calling it out like hyper proportion. Then these videos started leaking out there just to call their bluff. Then they got really silent about it.
Protagonist for Stellar Blade It debunks everything that people have to say when it comes to unrealistic beauty standards and unrealistic body proportions.
Yep.
Because I discussed before in a video talking about body proportions, which you can also check out as well. Women come in all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, but they only want the ugly ones in gaming.
And a lot of these body proportions that many people would say is unrealistic, you can find a woman that it looks exactly like that. So what is it? It doesn't make any sense at all. And when you look at society, when it comes to this whole body positivity, this is literally body shaming when it comes to this, where you come to censoring women's body. And then on top of that, when you look at the models itself, especially when it comes to Stellar Blade, or when it comes to this whole movement, and which I find like so hypocritical, is because if it's about equality and it's about body positivity, and when it comes to the body proportions, and
it's not. That's the problem. That's when they start moving the goalposts.
Everything like that, it's not spread evenly across the board. There's nothing equal about it because it's only directed towards women. You don't see that happening to men. As I said before, when it comes to motion,
because men in every game are always jacked, and there's no one's like has an issue with it. Like, yeah, jacked, muscular dude, no one cares, no problem. But when it comes to women, it's an issue for a beautiful girl with large breasts. That's a problem, apparently.
Capturing the male model and you bring them over to the game, they're pretty much identical, 1-to-1, and like twins. But when it comes to Western developers, when they take female models, they look nothing like them. It's like they beat them with an ugly stick. So when it comes to this, it's not evenly done across the board. And another thing I want to point out.
Okay, that was Mugen Lord. Shout out to him, and we'll leave it at this. This is Forbes. Paul Tassi. Unblock me, Paul. Stellar Blade is now the highest user scored PS5 game ever, which is a bit excessive. Is it, Paul? Is it? Sounds like something a cuck would say. Stellar Blade continues its cycle of discourse that alternates between culture wars and actual examination of the game's quality. Now it's hit a very high and unexpected watermark, combining both of those. As it stands, Stellar Blade is the highest user scored PS5 game of the entire generation on Metacritic, elevating it above its strong but not stunning 82 Metacritic score from critics. It's currently at a 9.2 out of 10, which, yes, does tie it with Cyberpunk 2077 and Resident Evil 4's Separate Ways expansion. However, I'm going to consider it number one, not just because it was a 9.3 as of yesterday, indicating it's at the high end of the 9.2, but because it has 2,598 reviews in compared to the 333 and the 81. It's way harder to maintain that high of a score with thousands of reviews. That rearranges the all-time PS5 list when I wrote about it last week. Oh, okay. While I said last time that I did not begrudge the game its high user score, this is a bit excessive. I really do like the game a lot. It's really fun. A solid 8 out of 10, and I enjoy it so much. I am 50 hours in and in the middle of a new game plus playthrough. I am sure a lot of people feel the same. And yet I can't help but acknowledge that some of this is due to the culture war angle here, with a certain segment of the voting population giving it 10s for what it represents, with an unabashedly sexy character as its lead, something some of these players think is not seen enough in games now. Don't make me pull out a long list of how that's not true. Okay, Paul, if there's a long list of how it's not true, why aren't those games getting the 10s and the higher scores and the 9.2, 9.3 out of 10 user scores? Because they don't exist, Paul. That's the problem. And if they do, they were years ago. So miss me with this whole argument, this bullshit. This guy that's just coping and cucking, crying that, oh no, how dare a real female person get mocapped and put into a game, but she just happens to be too attractive for you, Paul. So now it's distracting, and it's her fault, not yours. It's her fault for being too beautiful. And now that's why people are giving it higher scores. Not because the game is a fucking banger, which you yourself admitted here that you're 50 hours in and playing a new game plus of. Sounds like you want to lower the score because she's attractive. Ironically, the exact thing that you're arguing against right now. These people, these journos, are all the same. They just want the girls to be ugly in games. Stop it. You will not win this. Sex sells. Historically, it always has. And in the future, it always will. And you will never get someone to think that someone ugly is beautiful. No matter how much money you put into it, no matter how much shaming you do or victimhood you claim, ugly is ugly. And ain't nothing changing that. People might grandstand and say, oh yeah, you slay queen, shave that hair, put that nose ring in, draw those tattoos on. At the end of the day, ain't no one buying your slop. They're going to go right back to Eve because that's what people want. And I'll leave that there.